Good evening. You're watching ARIRANG News at 8. It's Friday, January 10th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I am Yoo Ji-hye. Now, South Korea is making efforts to keep the flames of friendly inter-Korean relations alive, kindled by the leaders of the two Koreas through their cordial New Year's addresses. Seoul says it's willing to discuss the resumption of a long-stalled joint tourism project near Mount Geumgang if certain conditions are met. Han Da-eun has the details.
Seoul's unification ministry says South Korea is willing to talk with the North about resuming tours to the Mount Geumgang resort.
If North Korea makes a proposal that includes specific dates, I think the two Koreas can have a discussion on the halted Mount Geumgang tours.
Friday's remarks came one day after Pyongyang turned down Seoul's offer for talks on reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The North questioned how the humanitarian event could be held right before annual South Korea-U.S. joint military drill set for February. The reclusive state also said that before the two Koreas can discuss the reunions, they must address issues that have been raised by the North in the past. That is assumed to include a resumption of tours to the Mount Geumgang resort. Ministry spokesman Kim Ui-do, however, reiterated that the Mount Geumgang tourism and family reunion issues should be dealt with separately. He said the two issues are not linked and that there is no change in Seoul's insistence that North Korea should first claim responsibility for shooting a South Korean tourist dead in 2008. The spokesman also urged North Korea to show sincerity about Seoul's offer for talks if it truly wants improved ties with the South.
Resuming family reunions is the first step towards a new inter-Korean relationship.
Political watchers point out that although the upcoming South Korea-U.S. military exercises are likely to be a major hurdle in resuming inter-Korean dialogue, the two Koreas have not completely ruled out the possibility of future negotiations. Han Da-eun, ARIRANG News.
And staying in the North, and a daunting evaluation of North Korea's nuclear program. A report by U.S. think tank says the rogue state ranks rock bottom in terms of safeguarding its nuclear materials and adhering to international standards. Connie Kim has the details.
While the international community rightly focuses on the problems facing the region and the wider world after the Fukushima nuclear disaster, something equally as bad could happen at any time just north of the border, as a new report shows North Korea has the worst nuclear security conditions in the world. Nuclear Threat Initiative, a U.S.-based think tank, ranked North Korea's Nuclear Materials Security Index at 30 points out of 100, the lowest among 25 countries that hold weapons-usable nuclear materials. The index measures the quantity and sites of nuclear materials, global norms and domestic commitments of countries with more than 1 kilogram of highly enriched uranium and plutonium. Among the factors evaluated, North Korea ranked the lowest in the categories of voluntary commitments, safeguards adherence, and compliance. The NTI said that the North's lack of information regarding nuclear activity was the main reason behind the country's low scores. The organization also added it could improve its scores if the country signs and ratifies international agreements and shows initiative in international nuclear security. Overall, nuclear material security improved worldwide. 7 states, including Hungary, Mexico, and Ukraine, began completely removing most or all of its weapons-usable nuclear materials in 2012. The report comes ahead of the Nuclear Security Summit to be held in March in The Hague. Australia topped the list, followed by Canada and Switzerland, while India and Iran ranked 23rd and 24th, respectively. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And former NBA Dennis Rodman stirring up controversy again in North Korea following a report that he brought luxury gifts worth thousands of dollars to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife. It remains to be seen whether he will face consequences for the act, which is a clear violation of UN sanctions. Our Son Jung-in reports.
The controversy surrounding former NBA star Dennis Rodman flared anew after revelations that Rodman gave North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his family luxury gifts worth thousands of dollars on his recent trip there. Dennis Halpin, a scholar at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, quoting a diplomatic source, said Rodman was carrying birthday presents for the North Korean leader and gifts for his family. According to the source, Rodman brought several $100s worth of Irish Jameson whiskey, European crystal, an Italian suit for Kim, and a fur coat and an English Burberry handbag for Kim's wife, Lee Seol-ju. The total cost of the gifts is reportedly well over $10,000. Halpin noted that providing Pyongyang with any luxury goods is a clear violation of the sanctions imposed by UN Security Council Resolution 1718, which was first imposed after North Korea's first nuclear test in 2006 and as a response to Kim Jong-il's large-scale purchases of luxury goods as his people went hungry. The UNSC resolution specifies that prohibited luxury goods are banned for transfer to North Korea, including certain kinds of jewelry and precious stones and luxury automobiles. It remains to be seen whether Rodman will be punished under an executive order signed by U.S. President Barack Obama that states that harsh penalties can be imposed on any U.S. citizen violating the resolution. Rodman could be facing up to 20 years in jail and a fine of $1 million, along with other civil penalties. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Over now to Seoul, Washington defense cost deal. South Korea and the United States struck in a accord Friday on how much Seoul should contribute toward the stationing of U.S. troops here. Under the agreement, Seoul will be paying around $900 million, which is $50 million more than the amount Korea had originally offered. Sources say the two sides also agreed to renew the special measures agreement every 5 years so that it coincides with the length of each administration's term in Korea. The previous deal for defense cost sharing expired last week. And time isn't dissipating the tensions that boiled to the surface after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's visit to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine last month. China's foreign minister didn't hold back his feelings about Abe on Friday, blasting the Japanese leader in a statement released online. Kim Ji-yeon tells us what he said.
China is stepping up its rhetoric against Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in the wake of his visit last month to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine. Through Beijing's official website on Thursday, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that Abe had crossed the bottom line of human conscience by paying tribute at the shrine. Wang says Abe has a distorted view on history as he regards the convicted war criminals as the souls of the war dead. Korea and China consider the Yasukuni Shrine to be a symbol of Japanese military aggression. 14 Class A war criminals and hundreds more convicted of lesser crimes are enshrined there alongside 2.5 million Japanese war dead. In regards to the cancellations of visits by Chinese officials to Japan that were initially scheduled for this month, Beijing's foreign ministry spokesperson said it was inevitable that Abe's actions would affect Sino-Japanese relations. Earlier, Japan's UN ambassador Motoite Yoshikawa said Abe's visit did not praise war criminals, but was meant to respect those died in war. Abe's younger brother and senior Vice Foreign Minister Nobuo Gishi will head to the U.S. next Monday to seek Washington's understanding for Abe's visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
In domestic politics, the leaders of the ruling and main opposition parties are set to hold separate press conferences early next week, where they'll announce their policy goals for 2014. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports on what we can expect from the two sides.
The ruling Saenuri Party will hold its New Year's news conference in Seoul next Tuesday, about 1 week after President Park Geun-hye held her own. Saenuri Party chief Hwang Woo-yeol is expected to outline how his party intends to help President Park realize her 3-year economic innovation plan. The president wants to put the country on the path to a per capita income of $40,000 and a 70% employment rate before her term ends. With that in mind, the ruling party chief is likely to talk about how the National Assembly should support the slowly recovering economy and boost domestic demand. As the legislation of such bills requires bipartisan efforts, Hwang is likely to seek help from the main opposition party. Another issue that may come up during the press conference is reunification with North Korea, which President Park described as being a jackpot in her New Year's address. On the other side of the political aisle lies the main opposition Democratic Party, whose chairman Kim Han-gil will hold his New Year's press conference on Monday. Political watchers expect Kim to urge President Park and the government to communicate more effectively in 2014, both with the general public and the opposition. He's also expected to once again call on the president to launch an independent investigation into allegations that a number of state institutions, including the spy agency and the military, try to influence the outcome of the 2012 presidential election in favor of now President Park Geun-hye. Reviving the economy is also a goal of the Democratic Party, but the party wants to do it by promoting fair business practices. The rival party's press conferences early next week will be the first ones held under the current leadership, and both leaders are expected to address two main issues that kept the National Assembly in a deadlock for much of last year: the policy divide between the rival parties and the election manipulation scandal. Kim Hyun-ji, ARIRANG News.
And there's a new political dispute escalating at the National Assembly. This time it has to do with the government's plan to ease regulations in the medical sector. The opposition party is claiming it's a maneuver to privatize the service, to which the ruling party says the Democratic Party is playing politics with the matter. Oh Jin-ju has the details.
The first privatization dispute was centered around the state-owned railway corporation. This one is focused on the medical sector. The blame game has a political center as the ruling and opposition parties jockey for position ahead of the upcoming regional elections in June. Ruling Senate Party floor leader Choi Kyung-hwan slammed the opposition party for spreading what he called unverified rumors and for distorting measures put forth by the Park administration to develop the medical industry.
The Democratic Party knows full well that allowing medical corporations to set up subsidiaries or providing remote medical services to patients will not increase medical expenses and has nothing to do with privatization. But the DP is trying to use it as a part of a political strategy in campaigning for the regional elections.
The main opposition Democratic Party, meanwhile, pointed the finger at President Park for instigating a conflict in the medical sector so shortly after the rail strike. DP leader Kim Han-gil said disregarding the public nature of medical services and viewing it as a type of commercial industry comes from, quote, pariah capitalism.
The privatization of the medical sector will inevitably lead to a hike in the public's medical bills. Should privatization be pushed before first listening to public opinion, before the matter goes through a thorough review and debate at Parliament, it will definitely fail.
The Park administration late last year unveiled plans that would allow medical corporations to set up subsidiaries as part of efforts to ease regulations and boost investment in the medical services sector. In response, some 500 members of the Korea Medical Association are expected to meet this weekend, where they will draw up plans to go on strike as early as Monday in protest of the government's measures. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News.
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat.
South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join ARIRANG's Yoo Ji-hye for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts and more. ARIRANG News. Every weeknight, live on ARIRANG TV.
Korea is stepping up efforts toward joining the U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations by holding a series of preliminary talks with related parties. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said Seoul's Deputy Trade Minister Choi Kyung-nim will embark on a four-nation trip on Monday that will take him to the United States, Mexico, Chile and Peru to check conditions for joining the 12-nation trade bloc. The TPP is an effort by the U.S. to increase its economic presence in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, since expressing its interest in joining the TPP late last year, Korea has already held bilateral talks with Australia and Canada. Korea has pledged additional support for infrastructure and economic development projects along the Mekong River in Southeast Asia. Finance ministers from Korea and Laos signed a memorandum of understanding in the Laotian capital of Vientiane on Friday that calls on Korea to deliver around $200 million in development assistance as part of the Economic Development Cooperation Fund. The two countries plan to build embankments along the Mekong River for the construction of roads and bridges and seek out new business projects using the Hangang River and Seoul as a model. If you've flown on an airplane anytime recently, you know you're required to turn off your cell phones during takeoff and landing. But the times are changing. And following similar moves in the United States and Europe, Korea's Transport Ministry announced it will allow airline passengers to keep those electronic devices on starting as early as March. Yoo Di-an has the details.
Passengers lining up to get on a domestic flight. Smartphones are a popular way to kill time as people wait to depart. But those phones are forced off once on board the aircraft as it prepares to take off. That's because of safety concerns that radio signals from electronic devices could interfere with the aircraft's communication and navigation systems. But air travelers will soon be able to continue watching videos and playing games with their gadgets throughout their entire flight. Korea's Ministry of Land, Transport and Maritime Affairs announced this week that upon finishing up its safety evaluations, all portable electronic devices will be cleared for use during all stages of the flight, starting as early as March. The decision follows similar moves in the United States and Europe. But don't expect phone calls to be allowed while flying to friendly skies just yet.
Making phone calls and sending messages that transmit radio waves will not be allowed.
So smartphones will be able to be used as long as they're on airplane mode. People with large notebooks that take up space will be advised to stow them under their seats or in their overhead compartment during takeoff and landing. The aviation industry is welcoming the new decision and is calling for quick adoption.
We hope the new decision will be adopted in the near future. We need to be more careful when considering phone calls, however. Although they have been proven to be safe, they could still cause discomfort to other passengers.
With the new move, carriers are developing new services that integrates passengers' electronic devices with the in-flight experience. Yoo Di-an, ARIRANG News.
With the drop in mercury levels, insulation products have been gaining popularity here in Korea. The products are cheap and easy to install, but just how effective are they in cutting heating costs? Our Kim Min-ji takes a look.
Bubble wrap, commonly used to wrap fragile goods, has been selling well in Korea, not for its original purpose, but for its insulating effects. But just how effective is it? In a recent experiment, a window was divided into 3 parts, and one part was covered with a layer of bubble wrap, another with 2 layers, while a third part was left without it. The room was set at 20 degrees Celsius, while the temperature outside was -15. 2 hours later, the part without the bubble wrap had dropped to 13 degrees Celsius, while the part with 1 layer of bubble wrap was 15.5 degrees, and the double-layered part of the window was 16 degrees. As the results show, bubble wrap helps prevent heat loss by about 3 degrees.
For better results, it would be best not to cover the parts of the window that get the most sunlight so as to receive as much solar energy as possible.
Another experiment was conducted to see how effective vinyl insulation film and paper weather strips were in blocking drafts. After the materials were placed, researchers directed a wind with a speed of 5 meters per second at the window and measured the pressure of the leaking air. When nothing was installed on the window, the pressure was 7. The window covered with wind vinyl had a pressure reading of 0, meaning it had blocked the draft 100%. The paper weather stripe, on the other hand, had a pressure reading of 5, meaning it was only able to block about 20 to 30% of the draft.
A lot of households are placing insulation strips and bubble wrap on their windows. But before doing that, they must block the draft coming in from the windows and doors to make it effective.
So go ahead and try a combination of these simple but effective methods to conserve the heat in your home instead of worrying about your heating bill. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Over in the U.S., Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke has offered an optimistic view on the U.S. economy's prospects, but warned that tough decisions lay ahead on dealing with long-term budget deficits and spiraling healthcare costs. Now, meeting with Democratic senators in Washington Thursday, Bernanke said the reduction in federal budget deficits and the country's improving energy position were contributing to a healthier U.S. economy. However, Bernanke tempered his positive outlook by warning that long-term challenges remain, particularly in regard to health care. Bernanke's term as Fed chairman ends on January 31st and will be replaced by current Vice Chair Janet Yellen after she was confirmed by the Senate earlier this week. And moving now to a growing political scandal in the U.S. New Jersey governor and potential presidential candidate Christie is facing a critical scandal involving massive traffic jams that allegedly were deliberately created as part of a political revenge plot. Our Shin Se-min has more.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie apologized Thursday for a growing scandal that threatens to shake his possible run for the presidency in 2016.
I am embarrassed and humiliated by the conduct of some of the people on my team. There's no doubt in my mind that the conduct that they exhibited is completely unacceptable and showed a lack of respect for their appropriate role of government and for the people that we're trusted to serve.
The apology follows revelations that one of his top aides may have ordered the closure of traffic lanes on the George Washington Bridge in September in what appears to be an act of revenge. The bridge connects New Jersey to New York City and is a major commuter route. The scandal broke Wednesday with the revelation of texts and emails showing that Bridget Ann Kelly, the governor's deputy chief of staff, and David Wildstein, a top executive at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which manages the George Washington Bridge, may have conspired to orchestrate the lane closure last fall. The lane closure appears to have been planned as political payback against a Democratic mayor in the state who refused to endorse Christie over his Democratic rival in his re-election bid last year. Christie announced Thursday that he fired Kelly while Weinstein resigned over the scandal early last month. The Office of the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey has announced it is launching an investigation into the case. Christie is a rising star in the Republican Party and a possible presidential contender in 2016. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center for a checkup. Now, Bo-kyung, the winter chills have let up, but the dry weather has moved in.
TGIF dry weather advisories are in effect throughout the country, and a dry weather alert has been issued in Gyeongsang-namdo province and the city of Ulsan. So if you're in those regions, please watch out for fires. Taking a look at the current conditions, the nation is at the edge of a high pressure system from China, which is why we're seeing cloudy skies across the map. Now, temperatures have begun to rise, and it looks like numbers will remain in the seasonal average range over the weekend. Now, if you have any outdoor activities planned, please be sure to do them this weekend because numbers will dip once again early next week. Looking ahead at tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at -5 degrees with a high of 3. Meanwhile, Gwangju and Busan hit 5 and 7 degrees respectively. Moving on to other regions, Jeju reaches 7 degrees while Dokdo and Mount Geumgang peak at 4 and -5 degrees respectively. Well, hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday evening, and let's now take a look at the international weather.
And that's a broadcast on this Friday evening. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. Thanks for watching.